These tips are meant to help you buy only what you need and what you can afford. Now, air quotes, because there's no such thing as a luxury purse necessity, and affordability is really a matter of perspective. Hello, and welcome to A Briefcase of Luxury, where we discuss all things educational about what it means to be a mindful luxury consumer. So, as a full-time business researching professor who studies business strategies and consumer behaviors, I know luxury consumption often gets a bad societal rep for promoting unhealthy mindsets and money habits, but it doesn't have to be that way. So let's start learning about what it means to be an informed consumer and what a mindful approach to luxury can look like for all of us. So let's talk about 5 money tips before you purchase your next designer purse. These tips are meant to help you buy only what you need and what you can afford. Now, air quotes, because there's no such thing as a luxury purse necessity, and affordability is really a matter of perspective. So let's jump right into it. Tip number 1. Before your next purchase, inventory and organize your entire collection. Do this Marie Kondo style if you have to, especially if you keep your collection in separate places or you keep them in their original boxes. Sometimes our collection, when it's out of mind or out of sight, it's out of mind. And so pull out your entire collection and put them in one place where you can inspect all of it. This allows you to not only understand, appreciate, but to also shop from what you already have and to be proud and thankful for the collection that you've already put together. Now, doing so also allows you to manage the gaps in your collection. So one of the best ways we can go about managing our collection is to have a plan for what we want our collection to look like. Whether or not you are categorizing your collection based on size, so from small, medium to large size bags, or color, for instance, if you want to make sure you have a good mix of neutral colors versus bolder colors, or you can even organize it based on function, so making sure you have an evening bag, a regular day bag, or a work bag. All of these are meant to help you understand what a full collection for you could look like. Now, make a note on what's missing and how you can start to fill in those gaps. Now, keep in mind, not all gaps need to be filled. It just needs to be filled according to what is specific to your collection. And especially learn to be intentional with how you fill to gaps. So just because you're missing a bag in your collection doesn't mean you need to have it if it doesn't make sense for what you want your collection to look like. This is also a great time to make a note on what you already have and what gaps have already been filled. This is a good moment for you to reassess your collection and those pieces. Are they fulfilling their role in your collection? If you have multiples, this is also a great time to see if either managing your collection size or if storage space is an issue. This is a good time to consider what are the purposes, or what's the purpose for you having multiples of the same bag. Are there any that you can rehome to free up the space or to make extra income that you can put towards something new for your collection instead? So, when you're able to inventory and organize your collection, it can help you manage the size of your collection so it doesn't become redundant or overwhelming. Doing an inventory of your collection can also help create habits of intentional versus impulsive purchases. It prevents you from buying what you already have or buying something you don't need to have. And so instead, you're going to shop towards your collection instead. Tip number 2, here's the fun part where we start shopping for our gaps. So create a note on your phone if you want to, for instance, and only list your allowed purchases along with the prices. And so here we get to research on what type of purse would actually fill this gap in our collection. And that way we're just shopping with an aim and not just aimlessly shopping instead. So when it comes to researching your next bag, it's great to start comparing what your different alternatives could be. You could compare based on price, for instance, but however, just keep in mind, if you opt for a less expensive version of the bag, would you still be satisfied? Or would you be better off just getting what you really wanted in the first place, even if it takes a little bit longer? So when you start shopping for these gaps, make sure that you prioritize your purchases, especially if you have multiple gaps. Maybe you can prioritize based on the seasonality or whether or not you know these bags are going to go on sale. This is again a great way to make sure that you are intentionally shopping. And I would always recommend that you focus on the gaps in your collection first before replacing your current collection. Tip number 3 is to start a luxury purchase fund in a high yield online savings account. Wanting to make luxury purchases mindfully is a great excuse to understand your finances. That's honestly how I started when I fell victim to lifestyle creep. And so the entire purpose of understanding your finances is to give every single dollar from your paycheck a purpose. So in the past, I would see what's left in my bank account or how much credit I have available for my next purchase. Now I make a commitment to spend only from one designated fund. Currently, I use Capital One 360 savings account. This is not sponsored. It's just a great online savings account. Current rate right now is 2.35 APY, which is great for a savings account. And what you can do is create multiple accounts if you need to make multiple purchases. For instance, I have a luxury fund that's just labeled Orkin for my Birkin, and that's towards my next big Birkin purchase. The trick about having a luxury purchasing fund is that all luxury purchases must be paid out from this fund only. So even if you do plan on using a credit card, there must be enough in this fund to cover the purchase. So if you only have $100 in the fund, then you are limited to only spending $100, or your other option is just to save up for more. So tip number 4 is all about paying yourself first. This is actually how we start planning for our purchases. We know that there's a general rule of thumb when it comes to healthy money habits, and that is to create the habit of paying yourself first, putting away money for investments before using what's left on bills and other living expenses. Well, I opt to pay myself simultaneously. So personally, aside from having an account that has enough money to cover monthly bills and everyday expenses such as groceries, gas, discretionary purchases, my entire paycheck is divided and funneled into separate accounts. So generally speaking, I have 3 types of different accounts that I funnel my money into: an investment account, an emergency account, and my fun money account, which includes my luxury purchases. So first, you have to know your paycheck in order to know how much you are able to funnel into each. I know there's a 50-30-20 classic rule where 50% of your paycheck can go towards covering your needs, 30% towards your wants, and 20% for saving. So you first have to ask yourself, is this something that's actually feasible for you? When every dollar has a purpose, there's not a spare dollar left over when you're done dividing up your paycheck. And it shifts your mentality of what you can afford, because honestly, you can afford anything you want with this method. And so with this approach, the cost of the product should dictate how you budget instead of the other way around, where your budget dictates the cost of the product. That can lead to meaningless purchases. So if you only have $100 or $200 in your luxury fund and you spend it on a small luxury good just because that's all you can afford, well, that's only going to set you back further. And so you just need to have in mind to only shop for what you actually need and to save up towards that. And that way you can literally afford anything you want. And so if you are wanting the Chanel Classic Flap, for instance, and that's what you've determined is the gap in your collection, and let's say it's around $8,000 brand new from the store, and you're starting your fund from $0, let's say if you're able to put aside $1,000 per paycheck, then it will take 8 paychecks for your fund to be fully funded. Or if your paycheck allows you to put aside $2,000 or $4,000 and still be under that 30% mark for wants, then it can only take 4 paychecks or 2 paychecks. And so again, with this approach, you will still be able to afford anything that you want without putting yourself in a financial predicament or without regretting your purchase. You just have to be patient. And I promise you, you won't die if you don't get the purse you want tomorrow. Which leads me to tip number 5. Building your collection is a marathon, not a sprint. Did you know that the majority of luxury consumers are considered low to middle class income aspirational customers? These include households earning below $150,000, and they typically make up more than half of current luxury purchases. If you think about it, even high income earners may not always have liquid assets like cash on hand just sitting around for the spontaneous Hermes Birkin purchase. So there's no shame in having to save up for a purchase. If you keep that in mind and also recognize that the perfect collection for you may be a moving target. And so enjoy the journey, because this will help prevent a do or die attitude to make your collection complete. I hope you found these tips helpful, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.